Hey guys, it's Mike here. 2017 is coming to an end, and what better way to end the year than to go through some of the best films of the year. And when I say best, I mean my personal favourites. So before we begin, I need to say a little disclaimer for my video. That being, some of the films you may see on this list, you may have actually seen on other people's lists from last year. The reason that they're on my list for this year is because I go by UK release date. So that being said, let's get straight into the video, shall we? Number 10. So to kick off my list, I'm going to tell you a little story. The year was 2014, and one of my friends had suggested to me and my other friends that we should go see a film. All we knew was that Keanu Reeves was the lead, and it was an action movie. And we were like, okay, sure, why not? Let's go see it. And then when the film finished, I thought that was one of the greatest action films I'd ever seen in my life. And then when the sequel was coming out, I thought, will it be as good as the first one? And I was completely taken by surprise to see how good it actually was. The film I'm of course talking about is John Wick Chapter 2. My God, what a great film. I mean, it was thrilling, it was action-packed, the choreography was absolutely brilliant, and it was a thrill ride from start to finish. Number 9. Next up, we have Kingsman: The Golden Circle. Now, like me, I imagine that when you went to go see the first one, you weren't really expecting much. And also, like me, when the film was over, you were completely blown away by how good it was. Which, of course, brings me to The Golden Circle. So, is it as good as the first one? Myself personally, I would say that it was on par with the first one. Now, I've heard people say that the plot for this film was stupid. The way I see it, it was fun and entertaining. I mean, really, that's all you really want from a film. And what sets it apart from other films that are similar to it is that it was shot really well and you can see every single action scene. And really, isn't that what it's all about at the end? Number 8. Okay, so there seems to be a bit of a theme going on with this list so far. That the first one was a sequel, the second one was a sequel, and now this one is a sequel. The film I'm talking about is Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Remember those guys, that little small Marvel film that came out in 2014 that took everyone by surprise? Well, now we're talking about the sequel, and obviously it delivers again because these are really good, engaging characters. You know, Star-Lord, Drax, Rocket, Gamora, and with a slightly new addition of little baby Groot. So to start off, the opening scene for this movie, you got the big light display with them fighting the monster, and the ELO soundtrack. I mean, just absolutely brilliant. I mean, the amount of parodies I've seen of it on YouTube is just ridiculous. And the visual effects were absolutely brilliant. I wouldn't be surprised if this gets an Oscar nomination, which, you know, it probably will. So in conclusion, very good film, and I can't wait to see them in Infinity War. Number 7. Now, when most people normally think about Batman, they think dark, gritty, and serious, and Ben Affleck. But there was another Batman movie this year that was very much more light-hearted and family-friendly, and I think probably one of the best spoofs I've seen since Airplane, and that was the Lego Batman movie. Now, this film was just a roller coaster of humour. I mean, you have to watch this film more than twice just to get all the jokes because there's just so many of them. And they put loads of things in the backgrounds as well, which you have to scan and look around the film to find. Such as when they bend their legs, it's not actually a bent leg, it's a Lego cone. Just little small details like that that make this a really enjoyable film. Number 6. Now, this next film was one of the more surprising hits of the year. All I knew about it before going in was that it had Josh Brolin in it, and it was about firefighters in California dealing with wildfires. And this film is Only the Brave. And I cannot sell this film enough. I mean, if you need to see one good, dramatic film, I'd say Only the Brave is the one that you need to see. Because before going in, I thought that this was going to be one of those things like Deepwater Horizon, where they're dealing with the one big situation that they have to overcome and get through. Whereas this film, it's multiple little ones and some big ones that are spread out through the whole film. And this film is over 2 hours long, but at no point was I feeling any fatigue with this movie. It just kept going and going, and I didn't want this film to end. It was just an absolute delight of a movie, and I'm so glad that I actually saw it this year. Number 5. Now at number 5 on our list we have War for the Planet of the Apes. Very rare is it that we get a well-rounded trilogy like we got here. Though granted, the name of the movie was a bit misleading. Everyone expected this big, massive battle royale with the humans versus the apes, but no. What we get instead is a great character piece with Andy Serkis's great character, Caesar the Ape. Now from start, middle and end, we get this amazing journey of Caesar. From the first film, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, we see him as a little baby, growing into this mature character who eventually leads his people to salvation. And in the second film, we get this political maneuvery movie where Caesar is at the top, someone else tries to take position, Caesar has to reclaim his position. And in this third movie, we see that tensions between the humans and the apes are on absolute high. The movie starts off with a conflict between the humans and the apes, all shooting at each other in the middle of the forest. And you think that's pretty much going to be the film from here on out. But no, from there, we go more in depth with Caesar, see how he's maintaining his power, how his power starts to decline, and then how he brings his people back together to the land that they were promised, where they could roam free and be at peace. Not very often does an actor get nominated for a motion capture performance, but if there was one that needs to get nominated for such a thing, it is Andy Serkis as Caesar. Number 4. Now for the longest time, I've been waiting for Spider-Man to come back into the MCU. But at a certain point, I just gave up hope. I thought they were never going to do it. Sony's making too much money off of him. But then, it happened. We got a taste of Spider-Man inside of Civil War, and everyone loved him. Everyone thought that Tom Holland was the best Spider-Man. Now in the past, I've always said that Tobey Maguire was the best Peter Parker, and Andrew Garfield was the best Spider-Man. Tom Holland, on the other hand, does both of them justice and plays them both really well. Spider-Man Homecoming was an absolutely brilliant film. Probably one of the best Spider-Man films we've seen since Spider-Man 2. Because one of the biggest worries that people had, that if they were going to make a solo Spider-Man film, we were going to get another origin story. I mean, we get it. He's bit by a spider. Uncle Ben dies. With great power comes great responsibility, or however you want to say it. But no, what we get is just where we left him off from Civil War to where he is now. And this was just the best representation of Spider-Man. In a Spider-Man movie, you'd expect that all you'd want to see him do is just being Spider-Man. But even when he's being Peter Parker, just going through high school, he's still really interesting, and at no point was I thinking, oh, can they just get back to the Spider-Man bits, or can they just get back to the Peter Parker bits? Both of them merged really well together and made a really good film for Spider-Man. And also, I have to give a shout out to Michael Keaton. Granted, he was a really good villain as Vulture, but when he's just playing himself as the normal man, there's just an intensity that only Michael Keaton can really bring to the screen. The part where he's sitting in the car just threatening Peter Parker was an absolutely brilliant scene. And I can't wait to see Michael Keaton come back into the franchise. Maybe we might get a Sinister Six going on a bit. Who knows, we'll have to find out, won't we? Number 3. Now this next film needs no introductions, Logan. So to begin, I'm going to tell you all the things that I think it should be nominated for at the Oscars. Best Adapted Screenplay. Best Supporting Actress Daphne Keane as Laura. Best Supporting Actor Patrick Stewart as Charles Xavier. Best Picture, because this film was absolutely incredible and should be nominated for Best Picture. And the big one, the one I absolutely think, without a shadow of doubt, that if it doesn't get nominated, I think that it'll be an absolute crime. Hugh Jackman as Logan for Best Actor. Now in this film, even though there's quite a lot of gory action to satisfy the average moviegoer, what we get here instead is another intense character piece with Hugh Jackman. I mean, he's been playing Logan now for over 17 years, and by this point you'd think that people would get tired of him playing the character, but he shows us why he is Logan. So to start off, you see that Logan is completely at the end of his rope. He's old, he's withered, his healing factor isn't working as well, and he's having to take care of a sick Charles Xavier. Until one day, this little girl, Laura, played by Daphne Keane, who is a newcomer on the scene, and this girl is just absolutely incredible. I mean, this girl doesn't stare daggers, she stares swords. I mean, the intense look that this girl would give you, it looked like she would kill you just by looking at you. So the film becomes this father-daughter relationship where Logan has to protect her with Charles Xavier, and the intensity that Hugh Jackman brings to this film, from start, middle and end, this is an absolutely brilliant send-off for him. I mean, this may not actually be the last film we see him in. He could appear in Deadpool, which, depending on how they execute it, I'm kind of on the fence about. But if this is his last film, it was an absolute brilliant send-off for Hugh Jackman playing Logan. Well done, sir. Now, before we get to number 2, I have to say this, that for the number 2 and 1 spot, it was so close. I mean, it came down to the best film I've seen this year versus my favourite film I've seen this year. And in the end, I think I had to go with the favourite film over the best film. So without further ado, let's get to number 2, shall we? Number 2. Now, this next film was about as close to a near-perfect movie as I've seen in a long time. And this movie was Hacksaw Ridge. I mean, this film just blew me away with how good it was. Andrew Garfield as Desmond Doss. I mean, it was one of the greatest performances I've ever seen, and it was an absolute crime that he didn't win the Oscar. I mean, even Vince Vaughn, an actor who I never normally follow or think is very much of a good actor, showed some really good acting chops in this film. And so did everyone. The scene in the barracks where Vince Vaughn's character is calling them out, giving them all nicknames, was a really good tool to kind of get you to connect to these characters, because normally in these kind of films they all kind of just meld into one and you can never really tell anyone apart. But what this did, it gave everyone a chance to connect to these characters, really feel for them when they either got injured or died. Another thing that made Desmond Doss a really good, engaging character was that normally when you get these people who are all about promoting the word of God, they're very preachy about it. They say, you know, this is God, this is what you must believe. Whereas Desmond Doss said, this is what I believe, and you're free to believe what you believe. And that, for me personally, made him a really engaging character, and made him someone who I would want to root for. Something that people panned this movie for was being too gory when it was supposed to be presenting pacifism, where I think that that was actually a good thing for the film. By showing how gory and horrific this world is, it can really show how the pacifism can be a good thing. I honestly believe that Hacksaw Ridge is one of the best war films I've seen since Saving Private Ryan. I think it's actually on a par with Saving Private Ryan. Mel Gibson has made an absolute masterpiece of a movie, and I cannot wait to see what Mel Gibson brings us next. Now, before we get to our number 1 film, because there were so many films that I saw this year, I felt I had to do some honourable mentions. So like I said, before we get to number 1, here are some honourable mentions.
Guys. Oh, V. Ow.
Where's the rest of me? What happened?
Look, man, I know you're scared, but you need to know this. You'll be with the big boys. So you gotta stand up for yourself, because once you're marked in there, move! It will never end.
I know what you're thinking. How the heck does a 52-year-old, over-the-hill milkshake machine salesman build a fast food empire with 1,600 restaurants and an annual revenue of $700 million? One word: persistence.
I just heard you play, and I wanted... It's pretty strange that we keep running into each other.
Maybe it means something.
I doubt it.
Yeah, I don't think so. You could just write your own roles, you know, write something that's as interesting as you are.
What are you gonna do?
I have my own club.
Is that gonna happen every time? I think so.
Number 1! Okay, so now we have the big one. Number 1, my favourite film of 2017 was Thor Ragnarok. Now, I knew that this film was going to be good. I was looking forward to it since they announced the first trailer, even before they announced the first trailer, and I was just blown away by how brilliant this film was. I mean, a lot of people bogged this film down because they couldn't decide whether it was a comedy or an action film. I mean, the director himself said that this is a comedy, and me, I love comedies. And I thought every actor played their characters very well. Like returning actors such as Chris Hemsworth as Thor, Tom Hiddleston as Loki, Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk, and the new ones like Tessa Thompson as Valkyrie, and Jeff Goldblum as, well, Jeff Goldblum, because he pretty much just plays Jeff Goldblum in the film. I mean, this film was such a breath of fresh air, because if you'd asked people before, who's your favourite Avenger, more likely or not, they wouldn't say Thor, because being a near immortal demigod from Norse mythology. He isn't very relatable, and what Taika Waititi did was bring him down to a more human level, a more relatable level, which gave people a more engaging character. And I'd be wrong if I didn't mention probably nearly everyone's favourite character from the film, Korg, played by the director himself, Taika Waititi. This character, every line he said was pure gold. And I've heard a lot of people say that they should have a Korg film or a Korg TV show. But I think if they did that, we'd probably have too much of him. I think he's a good tertiary character. And that's it. Thor Ragnarok, #1. And like I said about the Guardians of the Galaxy, I cannot wait to see Thor in Infinity War. I think it's going to be absolutely brilliant. Okay guys, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. And I'd really like to hear from you. What's your favourite film of the year? What's your least favourite film of the year? Though if you want to talk about your least favourite film, I will be having a top 10 worst films of the year, so stick around for that. So comment below, what did you think was your favourite film of the year? And until then, I've been Michael. See ya.